In the fall of 2021, I hiked the Trans-Catalina Trail, a 38.5-mile trail that traverses Catalina Island off the coast of Southern California. The hike is marked by beautiful vistas, particularly when you can see the ocean on each side of the island, but is full of challenge as well. I've since section hiked portions of the PCT, and I have to say that the TCT is harder, with 17,000 feet of elevation change across that short 38.5 miles. While our hike began with a ferry ride from San Pedro to Avalon, the most sizable town on the island, our trip really began when we secured the permits for camping along the route. I wish I had simply called the Catalina Island Conservancy from the get-go, though, as that would have allowed us to better build the trip rather than relying on the online campsite selection. We planned to do the hike as a 4-day excursion, and that felt about right for the three of us who were all in our 50s. This meant camping at Blackjack Campground, Little Harbor Campground, and Two Harbors. If we had known to begin by trying to book Parsons Landing, we may have been able to stay at that stunning but small camping area right on the beach on the northern end of the island. We planned our trip to come into Avalon on a Thursday and then leave from Two Harbors, a tiny outpost on the other end of the island, on Sunday. Ferry service from Two Harbors to San Pedro only ran on weekends when we were doing the trip in October of 2021. After getting off the ferry, you walk through town to Avalon Canyon Road. As you get to the Herman Gulch campground, look for signs for the Trans-Catalina Trail. The walk from the ferry to Blackjack Campground is about 11 miles and feels tough, perhaps because we had gotten up ridiculously early to drive to San Pedro. After a good-sized climb to a ridgeline giving you views of the ocean, you descend and ascend twice more before arriving at Blackjack. If you have done a lot of wilderness hiking, one positive of the TCT is that all water sources are piped. There is no need for filtration. Blackjack Campground also featured pit toilets despite its rather nondescript location. The next day, we did 8 miles and finished at Little Harbor. The highlight during the day was breakfast at Catalina Island's Airport in the Sky. Our camping spot at Little Harbor could not have been better, as we were the first spot on the beach. The sunset was amazing. third day brought a short 5-mile hike to Two Harbors. If we had been able to camp at Parsons Landing, this is the day I would have changed, continuing the 6.5 miles to Parsons instead of stopping at Two Harbors. The stop at Two Harbors meant showers and a restaurant meal in the one restaurant in town. On the weekends, the Two Harbors campground is busy and noisy. On our fourth and final day, we got up before daybreak in order to knock out the 14.5-mile loop that would take us to Parsons Landing over the hills and then along the coastal road back to Two Harbors in time to catch the ferry. The first 6.5 miles to Parsons were tough but beautiful. The return was a bit ho-hum from a hiking perspective, but the harbors that you walk by are stunning. In terms of gear, as it was my first through hike, I was a bit heavy. We were able to slack pack the fourth day, knowing we had to return to Two Harbors at the end. We also carried more food than we needed. Depending on your timing with our itinerary, you can get a restaurant meal every day, in Avalon, at the airport, and in Two Harbors. I hiked with trail runners and they were great for the hike. I appreciated having trekking poles, particularly for some of the steeper declines, but it is doable without them. With the toilets at the campgrounds, you are unlikely to have to do your business in the wilderness. There is little shade on the island, and we were glad for a marine layer that kept the sun at bay during the first day of the hike. We did wear good gear for the sun, long-sleeved sun shirts, wide-brimmed hats, and sunscreen. Overall, we loved our TCT hike. Great views, a challenging hike, some wildlife. We saw bison, deer, Catalina Island foxes. We thoroughly loved the opportunity to complete our first through hike.